Hello fellow JAYCOMMAND and BMPRO owners. In today's video, I'm going to make an attempt is the key word, at replacing the battery in the JAYCOMMAND BMPRO tablet here. Now if you didn't catch my last video, I went and explored the option of entirely replacing the tablet with an aftermarket alternative. There's a bunch of them that happen to be about the same size and fit in the bezel. And so I actually bought 3 different tablets and went through that whole process in the last video, so definitely check that one out if you want to pursue that route. But basically the consensus that I came to, it kind of surprised me. The hardware inside of this, when I ran the hardware device info app, is actually fairly impressive for a tablet like this, having 2 gigs of RAM, a 1.3 gigahertz quad core processor and such. And so really today I'm going to try to replace the battery. And so let me address the first question. Why would you want to replace the battery in the factory OEM BMPRO JAYCOMMAND tablet? Your battery may have gone dead completely, and so it's obvious in that case. In my case, I still have some battery life left. You can see it's unplugged now, and I charged it up last night, so it's at 100%. But what I noticed, and this is really in the last probably 2 months of using the tablet, is that it's gotten kind of sluggish and unresponsive at times. And when you're used to a device, you're used to using it, you kind of get accustomed to the speed, the responsiveness. But like I said, I noticed it was getting sluggish. And then I also noticed that the battery meter, even though it's plugged in when it's docked in the bezel and everything, the battery was kind of fluctuating. Normally it stays at 100%, but it was kind of dropping to 70, 80%. And basically I think what's happening is when the operating system on the tablet detects a battery voltage issue or something that's a little bit out of range, it's trying to be smart and say, hey, the battery is weak or low on your tablet, or if you had a phone, an Android phone, so let me slow down the processor and some of the other resources on the tablet to help conserve battery power. So basically Android was trying to be smart, I think, and that is in turn what I believe was causing the tablet to be sluggish and unresponsive. And so that's my theory again. I hope that replacing the battery proactively will address those concerns and rid that sluggishness, because I checked other things, like are there other things running in the background or other resources, and none of that. I couldn't come up with anything. So hopefully in today's video we'll get the battery replaced. Full disclosure, I am not a mobile device repairman. I'm just an average RV owner letting you watch in as I do this. This is not an official how-to video from Jayco or BMPRO, so watch and follow along at your own risk. I mean, this could be a total flop. But that being said, the first thing you obviously need to do is get the battery. And I have not actually opened up this tablet. I'm going to be doing it here in just a minute for the first time. However, I try to keep up with different forums with Jayco units and the BMPRO system online, and I had noticed quite some time ago several users commenting that they had to replace the battery on their BMPRO tablet. And so I saved that particular link, the battery that they bought, thinking maybe this will come in handy in the future. So that's what this battery is. Hopefully this will be the right size. We'll find out here in just a minute. But I do want to say thank you to whoever put this link up for this battery. I think it was on one of the Jayco forums, and I apologize because I just don't remember what the username was, but I want to thank you because this should save us some time, and I'll put a link to this in the description below as well. Okay, so replacing the battery. The first thing we're going to do is shut down the tablet just by holding the power button down up here and then tapping power off. Of course, we'll unplug it as well. Now, if you have any personal data on your tablet, you want to back that up, of course, first, because this may not be successful, and if you have anything important on there, you don't want to lose. In my case, I don't have anything on there. So we got it all powered off now, and basically the tablet comes apart right here between the top kind of rounded bezel right here and this side piece. You kind of see that crease there. It looks like a seam going all the way, and it's closer to the front of the tablet on this side. But it's my understanding that's where the tablet's going to come apart. And so you basically have to very carefully pry it open there. I don't want to crack any of the black plastic tabs that I imagine are inside that are keeping it, snapped together. I also don't want to nick any cables or, anything inside of here, other circuit boards. And so I'm going to go very slowly, very carefully. I'm going to reposition the camera here so that you can watch in and see how this goes. And then as far as the tools that I'm going to be using, I'm using this little pry tool here. I think this is actually made for watches, you know, analog watches, removing the back. And it's basically like a dull blade. I mean, it's not even sharp, but it's fine enough that you can kind of get in there and pry up and use as a lever. And then I've got a tweezer here just in case, and then a small flat blade. Might need some additional tools, but that's what I'm going to start out with. So I'm going to go, I think, along the top here, because I'm just looking at the ports down here and thinking there might be more things down here that could go wrong if I start at the top. So I'm going to start at the bottom of the tablet where this speaker is, and just see if I can get in there and get it opened up here. Alright, so it looks like I was able to get it started along the side actually a little bit better. I tried doing the top and it just didn't want to do it, so hopefully you can see that in the video. I am on the top. This is the top side with the speaker, and then this is the side. So I am going to kind of get in there and just slowly see if I can pry it open here. Okay, so I'm going very slowly. I'm speeding it up on the video so you don't have to waste time, but I'm going very slowly around the perimeter and just each time going a little bit wider, kind of prying it open here. Okay, so I just went real slow, and now I can tell it is coming loose here. It almost felt like sometimes there was some glue maybe, but you can see what it looks like. I can tell it's entirely loose, so I'm going to go real slow as I open it here because I don't know what I'm looking at. And okay, wow. So actually there was no wires attached to the back. I mean, that really is just a shell. So that was pretty nice. Okay, so now the first thing we're going to do is check the battery spec. Okay, so I'm noticing right away the battery in here is much larger than this replacement, but it's the same voltage. It's 3.7 volts, okay, and it's the same milliamp hours there, 2,500 milliamp hours. So that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure how that works. You know, I would think with the drastic size difference here, I mean, you can see that. I would think that it wouldn't be the same milliamp hours or something, so maybe it's just a more efficient cell. I mean, check out that size difference, but it is saying it's the same specs there. And while I've got this all open here, I'll just give you the dimensions of the original battery in case this one's not available or you want to find one that's closer to this size. So let me give you those dimensions real quick, and I'm going to do this in millimeters. All right, so this one is showing 69.52 millimeters on the shorter end, and then looks like right about 89.97, so basically 90 millimeters on the long end. Thickness wise, it looks the same, which is going to be right around 3.8 millimeters. So just for comparison, you can see laying them out there, this one here, oh, it actually, I didn't give the circuit board factored in there, so with that circuit board factored in, it is 94.9, so basically 95 millimeters, whereas this one is 75.46 millimeters, and then on the shorter dimension 55.79 millimeters. Okay, but it's got a very similar looking circuit board here, and then of course it's got a connector here which we won't be using. But let me first work on getting the old battery out, and this little tweezer here should actually come in handy. So it's got some tape here, it looks like, kind of covering all that. Almost feels like Scotch tape, but it's gold in color. So I'm just going to very carefully peel that back, put that right on top of the battery for now. So that's one piece, and it looks like there's another one over here. Very carefully, I don't want to nick anything. Okay, so let's see now what else is holding this on here. Okay, yeah, it does feel like there's some glue or something. So I want to be very careful again Just sticking my pry tool under here. It feels like there's metal underneath the whole thing, but I don't want to, you know, put too much force and crack the screen underneath. But yeah, it feels like there's some kind of glue maybe holding this on here. Okay, it feels like it's almost coming loose here. That is some really sticky stuff, I tell you what. And it kind of re-sticks itself as it makes content. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna real quick flip it over so we can see. All right, so it is all metal on the back side. And yeah, it's like this, I don't know, it's like a sticky adhesive, not really like a glue, but almost like just double-sided adhesive tape, a thin layer of it, just 2 strips along that battery there. So that wasn't too bad. And then you can see we got plenty of room for the new battery. I'll have to figure out what I want to do to attach that new cell. All right, so I'm looking at the battery terminals here on the motherboard, and they're pretty far apart actually here, these black and red wires. So that's a good thing. And I'm just debating about, you know, do I want to try to solder the new battery directly to the circuit board, or do I want to, you know, cut these wires here and solder directly to the wires? And again, guys, I'm just letting you follow around. I'm not an expert. This is not intended to be a how-to video, but I don't have as much experience soldering to circuit boards. And I have a lot more experience just soldering bare wires together. So for me personally, I feel more comfortable cutting the wires right here and then splicing them together, putting heat shrink tubing over them and everything. I just feel more comfortable and safer going that route. But again, you do, you know, at your own risk, what you feel most comfortable with. So I'm going to grab the soldering iron and my wire cutting tools and everything, and we'll get working on swapping this battery out. All right, so I'm going to go here, and this is the point of no return. I'm going to clip these wires right here. They are so tiny. Normally I'm soldering much larger wires, you know, 16, 14, 12 gauge. All right, so then next I'm going to strip these down. Okay, there we go. This one actually worked pretty good. Do the same thing over here on the red. All right, that was a success. And you know, worst part, if this doesn't work, me soldering these together, I can always solder them directly to the circuit board, but I'm gonna try this first. And this is the smallest heat shrink tubing that I have. It looks like it'll shrink down enough, but I'm gonna go ahead and slide these on. I've got a little bit more length on the battery side of the wires here. So I'm just sliding them over the wires now. There we go, that's better. And now I'm gonna attempt to get these wires connected. Wow, they are small. I'm not used to working on such small wires here when soldering. Alright, not proud of how that looks, but I think there's enough contact going on there for me to get the red soldered together here. Alright, that's pretty decent. Now let me move on to the black. Okay, so it looks like everything's cooled down. I've got a nice tight connection between those two wires. And so before I heat shrink this tubing, I'm going to cover the connectors up, but before I shrink it, I'm going to do a test power on the tablet to make sure that everything's still working, because I'm kind of taking a huge gamble here doing this. It may be not successful. Alright, so let's go ahead and do a test power now. And my power button is going to be, let's see, it's going to be this one here right next to that ribbon connector here. So here goes the moment of truth. The other question is I don't even know if the battery's charged up, but let's go ahead and hit the power button. Hey, what do you know? Look at that. We got power. That's a good sign. It's not flickering or anything like that. And look at that. Wow. Okay, I was really nervous that it wasn't going to come back on, but look at that. It looks like we got 57% there. It's acting completely normal. So I'm going to go ahead and shut it down and then do the heat shrink tubing there, figure out how I'm going to glue it, and put it all back together. And now I'm going to figure out how I want this all mounted. I think I'm going to do something like this here. You know, one advantage to this being smaller is it does give me a little bit of play with these wires. And just remember, the old battery went all the way over to this speaker over here. So I'm still well within the perimeter of the old battery, but I think this will involve the least amount of, you know, turns and twists on the wires here. And so this is, I think, where I'm going to put it. So as far as attaching this battery, I'm kind of thinking I might just put a little dab of either hot glue or silicone. Just thinking hot glue, the heat, I don't know if that would mess up with the metal below. I'm thinking maybe silicone, because silicone, you know, it's permanent as you need it to be. But I might just put maybe a dab in each corner underneath and let that dry up. So let me go grab a tube of silicone. Alright, silicone, here we go. So again guys, follow along at your own risk. I do not claim to be a professional by any means doing this. There probably is a better compound to use, but this is what I got. And this silicone tube has a lifetime guarantee. Alright, so I'm just putting just enough to hold it in place there. Doesn't have to look pretty, and that way if I ever have to come back in another 2 years and replace the battery, it won't be too hard to remove. And you know, everything fits pretty firmly, I think, with the case on anyway, so I'm not really concerned about things shifting. But thinking about that, I just remembered I got this tape. It's almost like a Scotch tape for electrical components, and I'm just gonna go ahead and see if I can make use of this still. Yeah, it's sort of tacky still, just to keep those wires out of the way. And I'm going to put these on the speaker wires over here to keep those kind of out of the way. Alright, that looks really good. Okay, so this is what it's looking like before I seal everything up. And now I'm going to snap the back cover on. So I'm going to line up my speaker grill with the speaker there. And it's just little snaps. You can see little tabs all the way around the perimeter. And so we're just going to line everything up and real gently snap everything back together. And I think I want to try to apply pressure to the outside and not be pushing, you know, on the middle, especially up here where all the motherboard stuff is. Okay, that looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm just going to put it on here again and just go around the perimeter. Get all my smudges wiped off the device there, and then I think we'll be looking in pretty good shape. Okay, so it's all put back together, and you can see there are a lot of pry marks along the edges there, especially at certain parts of it there. So I probably could have used a better pry tool there. I mean, I don't think you'd want to hire me to take your phone or tablet apart because you can see I didn't do the best job there. But this is all going to be hidden behind the bezel, so I'm not real concerned about that. You only see this part anyway. But let's go ahead and power it on again and just make sure that everything still works. Very nice. All right, so I'm gonna mount this back in the bezel and we'll put it back on the wall. The power button is gonna go on the bottom and line up with the bezel. In fact, you can see the little reset slot right there for the power button. So we're gonna slide it in like this. Actually, maybe the other way is better. Yeah, maybe start on the top and then, yeah, it just kind of drops in right there. And you can see just how nicely that power button lines up with that reset there as well. And then I just have to run this for the charging. Actually, I probably should have done that first. So kind of pry it out here. Make sure that's in nice and firmly. All right, looks good. And then just be real careful with this ribbon cable. I'm always nervous that I'm gonna nick it or something. We're gonna flip this over first, and then I'm going to get this other micro USB cable into its port here. Okay, nice and firm there. You can see what that looks like. And then we just kind of have to clip the circuit board back into its position. Looking good. And then we got tabs. So I got 1 tab, 2 tab, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 tabs. And then I've got 2 screws here. Okay, I think we are in good shape. So here's kind of how everything looks there. On the circuit board, we got our wires all tucked in there. And so I think we are ready to hang this back on the wall. You're looking up from above down, and I just have this little 4-pin connector here, which I believe is the kind of the CAN bus interface in the power. And so we're just going to carefully plug that in. There's only one way it can go. And then it kind of hinges on the top of the tablet here and then snaps down on the bottom here. Just like that. All right, check this out. We are back in business. Everything is as it should be. The touch screen works fine. Nothing got nicked so far, at least. And so I'm really pleased that everything worked out. I was a little bit nervous, just wasn't sure how the battery replacement would go. But I hope this is helpful to you. You know, especially if you're in my shoes and maybe you're getting to that 2-year ownership mark. It seems like that's kind of when problems start to happen, and I think the battery really is the primary culprit. So I'd almost recommend, if you're a Jayco owner and you have this BMPRO system, maybe start watching, you know, after your first year of ownership and you're getting to that 2-year mark. If you notice anything weird with the battery going on, where the battery is fluctuating even though it's plugged in, or you're noticing it suddenly gets slow and laggy and glitchy, it might be a good idea just to proactively replace the battery. And that way you don't have to worry about it. Because worst case, I've seen this happen before, where a lithium battery gets to the end of its life and it starts expanding. And if it expands, it could very well crack the screen or damage other things internally, and then you got to replace the whole thing. So I'd almost recommend just keeping an eye on it, maybe proactively replacing the battery. I'll try to include links to everything that I used in the description below, including the battery and maybe some of those other tools. It may not be the exact ones that I use, but similar ones that could help you get the job done. Now, if you're watching this and it's been several months since I recorded it, definitely drop me a comment below and ask me how things are holding up with the new battery, because for all I know, I nicked something or bumped something in the process, and you know, unknowingly a couple months from now, the whole thing will go kaput, or maybe the battery I got isn't going to hold up long term. So definitely drop me a comment, let me know how things are going. If you got any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Just remember, I'm just a fellow RVer. This is not my trade. This is very much out of my wheelhouse, and it worked for me, but if you try it, it may not work for you. And so just keep that in mind. And then last thing I'll mention is, if you're a subscriber, you've been following along, you know, the last few videos that I've done are kind of a mini series on the BMPRO, the JAYCOMMAND system. And really the goal is just to help out fellow owners, especially if you're like me and you're getting to that 2-year mark where things are going to be out of warranty, you know, just to help each other out. And so I've already explored the option of completely replacing the OEM tablet with an aftermarket equivalent or something close. And so if you didn't catch that video, definitely watch that one first. That one didn't turn out as I expected, and that's why, of course, I did the battery replacement instead. But I have been contemplating maybe doing another video where perhaps not a direct replacement, an aftermarket replacement that would go right here in the bezel, but maybe for whatever reason you don't want to spend money to buy a replacement here and you just want another tablet somewhere in your coach that you could use with the BMPRO system, because at the end of the day, it's just a Bluetooth connection, right? Especially if you don't need that cloud functionality with the remote monitoring everything. So I've been contemplating doing maybe another video on getting a decent aftermarket tablet, you know, that's legit, that has the right specs, that would really be an improvement from this OEM tablet, and you could put it anywhere in the coach and kind of use that as your primary means of interfacing, with the BMPRO system. So if that's something you're interested in, I could go through how to set it up, the different settings on the tablet to make it, run smoothly with the BMPRO system. Definitely drop me a comment below, and maybe I can incorporate that into a future video. If you found this helpful, be sure to give me a thumbs up. And as always, thanks for watching.